Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Rick Parkhill. I'm co-founder and director of Brand Storytelling, and I'm excited to be joined today by my friend, Brendan Gaul, Mediabrands Global Chief Content Officer, to discuss the how and why of brand-funded films, how they're conceived, how they're produced, and how they're distributed. For you first-time viewers, Brand Storytelling is a B2B publisher and event producer serving brands and their storytelling partners. We're best known for the event that we produce alongside the Sundance Film Festival. Unfortunately, we weren't able to be there in 2021, but we will be back in 2022. It's only 9 months away, so mark your calendar for Brand Storytelling at Sundance 2022. Since March of last year, we've been serving the community of brands and their storytelling partners with this video conferencing solutions. And this is one iteration of that. We do live streams, we do one-to-one conversations and roundtable discussions all through our brand storytelling network. You can learn more about us at BrandStorytelling.tv and come join our community if you have not already. So I first met Brendan Gaul back in 2016 during our first ever Sundance Festival event for brand storytelling, and quickly invited him to become one of our advisors. And since then, he's been a key voice on our advisory board, helping guide the content and the curriculum and agenda that we do for our live events. And really helping brands understand the pathway to becoming, members of the entertainment community and producing content that engages versus interrupts. We had the great fortune in 2019 to screen what I consider a seminal film in brand storytelling is 5B. Brendan has started to talk to me about 5B in probably mid 2018 that the film was going to be released, and did we want to show it at Sundance? And he said it's kind of some pretty heavy material here for we're going to show it on our Saturday night closing of the event, which is kind of party night. But we made the good choice to screen the film, and we did so at the Silver Lake Lodge in Deer Valley to a room full of brands and their partners, agencies and PR firms, et cetera. There's a couple hundred people there to see this premiere screening of the film. And we were worried about whether they would pay attention to this or not on a Saturday night. But you couldn't hear a pin drop in that theater that night. And that room full of brands, I know, left inspired to go tell their own stories and become producers of feature-length films. Last year, or the last time we were at Sundance, which was the 2020 event, we were for Dear Santa. And again, another inspirational moment for brands that want to get into this space. So I'm really happy to bring Brendan Gaul on. Brendan, why don't you go ahead and turn on your video and unmute and join us here. Brendan and his teams have been lighting the way for brands to become integral players in the entertainment and content world. So, thanks for being here, Brendan. We're going to get into the anatomy of a brand-funded film here in just a moment, but I'd really like you to take us through first the anatomy of the Mediabrands Content Studio, the Studios, Traverse 32. You sit on top of all of these things. Tell us how the three work together to serve clients.
Sure thing. And Rick, thank you so much for your support of the craft of brand storytelling. You've really created a community that I think it's a safe place for people to have conversations and share work and ask questions about how to do things. I really appreciate everything that you do and the opportunities you've given my team and especially our clients and their work. So thank you. I started Studios, which was a content group within which is one of our big media agencies that is within Mediabrands. And within that created a couple disciplines, original content, branded content, performance content. And through the success of 5B and Dear Santa and another film that we did called Oso out of Studios Spain, we really saw the need an opportunity to take the original content practice and create a standalone unit that can work across clients that were not only clients and not only Mediabrands clients, but also IPG, our holding company, as well as any clients. So Traverse 32 set up to do brand funded film work for clients outside of or Initiative, our two large agencies. And now I sit across Mediabrands and all of our capabilities as the Global Chief Content Officer of Mediabrands and the Global President of Traverse 32, which is our film and TV development company. It's, as we talk about the anatomy of agencies and holding companies, and it can get really confusing. So I pulled a couple slides together just to show you the way it all works. And I'm also aware that, while this is important, we want to get to the good stuff around anatomy of feature films and how we're doing that. So I'll just fly through pretty quickly. At Mediabrands, we have two big agencies, and Initiative. Those agencies have a number of big brands that are working in the content space. At you've got brands like Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, Levi's, Sony, Spotify, and others. At Initiative, you have brands like Amazon and recently T-Mobile and Carlsberg and Lego. When you look at the capabilities across all of our agencies within Mediabrands, there are a couple things, right? You've got your media planning and strategy. Then you've got branded content. At that shows up as Studios. And then Initiative also has a branded content practice. We do our performance data-driven content through Reprise. We do our big marketplace content deals and also testing with our company Magna. We have a custom out-of-home activation unit that does experiential and out-of-home work. And then we have financing for content and other opportunities within Orion. And previously, all of these companies were networked together really solidly to answer a media question for a client because we are Mediabrands. The opportunity in what I'm doing is I'm connecting all these capabilities with a look towards content that helps our clients plan against the same audience for both media and content. And just some quick, go-to examples. Studios, working with Spider-Man and, the Marvel characters to create ancillary content around Tony Stark's NBA Finals party. The first integration into carpool karaoke with Selena Gomez and Coke. Supporting American Express small business and Shop Small with Seth Meyers. That's all at At Initiative, we've got this great content series running right now in Australia with Absolute Vodka. And it's all about acceptance and inclusivity. And these drag queens go back to their hometowns and put on these shows and parties with Absolute. Or Grow with Love, which is out of Initiative Canada with Wendy's. And it winds up Wendy's is the #1 lettuce grower in all of Canada. And here, consumers could write tweets showing love to this lettuce, and those tweets are read aloud in the greenhouses. Like, it's a great stunt content approach. When you look at Reprise, we're hitting the right person in the right place at the right moment, at the place in their purchase journey. So customized content for Aveeno hitting, 18,000 different units based on, time of day, purchase cycle, where they are, or also, for Ninja on, the foodie. So here we're running overlays on the bottom of work within OTT platforms where you can click and get recipes and things that you see in the commercials. We recently made a lot of noise with our TikTok deal through Magna, which is a content creator workshop where top TikTokers are going to be working with our brands and clients on content together. Our study that we did with Roku and Magna is actually the impetus for them launching their new brand content studio. We have our equity upfront, where we're focused on Black and diversity owned media owners and content providers. And then also research studies around ad effectiveness and the influence of context. Custom out of home activation, like Lego's Rebuild the World, where kids can use their hands to build Lego structures on billboards in real time through haptic technology, or the award-winning takeover of subway stations for Spotify around the sad death of David Bowie. We also have Orion, which can help with content financing, both on the client side and on the media owner side. So my role is to network all of these capabilities and bring them forward for our clients. We're also supported by a number of companies, right? So we have Axiom, which is our overall data foundation for everything that we do. Kinesso, which is our marketing technology solution. Matterkind, which is our addressable media company. And of course, we're going to get into my favorite, Rick, Traverse 32, which is the company that I'm the global president of, and that's premium original content and entertainment solutions. So any questions about that before I jump into the Traverse 32 stuff, Rick?
I didn't understand that there was this whole network that you pulled from for each one of the studios and the capabilities that sit behind what we look at UM and Traverse 32. Orion and content financing, probably our community probably like to learn more about that, but we'll save that for another time.
Sure. And you can always reach out, info@traverse32.com with any questions. And we can
I'd like to remind everybody who's tuned in right now to use the chat to post any questions, and we'll try to field your questions as we find time. Brendan, what I'd really like to do now is get to the meat of the matter on what brands need to know about, what's the anatomy of a brand funded film.
Yep.
From what, when you first conceive of it, what's that process look like? Where did these ideas come from? A film like Dear Santa or 5B, I'm sure it takes a team to figure this out. Is it done in a workshop environment? How do you work through this to come up with these great ideas?
Sure, absolutely. This is my favorite thing to talk about. So
let's go.
The thing that's interesting, right? And with Traverse 32, there's two things here, right? That was the reason to launch it, because when it happened, everyone's like, wait a minute, what's the difference? I don't understand. And I hope this makes it pretty clear. Like the first thing is, when you're dealing with a film property that you're looking to monetize, often there are these really long multi-year licensing deals. So you could have one film that you sell for a global buyout, and then you don't have to worry about it again. You get paid all up front. Then there's other films where you may sell it in a region, and you're trying to recoup that film over multiple years. Those models don't fit into traditional agency.
That doesn't work for brands, does it?
Right. Exactly.
Brands operate on quarterly results, and how do they plan for even I know 5B was in production for years.
Yeah. I mean, these things take about 3 years. So Traverse 32 is set up to manage that seamlessly and easily for clients. And then also, all of the other media brands, agencies, they tend to buy space on media owners to run content. Traverse 32 sells content to distributors. So 5B was sold to Riot, part of Verizon, and recouped. And Dear Santa was sold to IFC Films, and then they released the film. So they're two different conversations in the buyer-seller space. Traverse 32 is the place where you go to develop and make a piece of content that you are going to look to sell to a distributor, and you want it to behave and act like a piece of entertainment. And I think that's a key difference that we're doing that that many others aren't, right? So what does that look like, right? Across 5B, which again was on Verizon, was sold to Verizon. There was a theatrical release, a VOD release, and now it's on Amazon. Oso, which is on Amazon, and then Dear Santa, which sold to IFC, had a theatrical and VOD release, albeit during COVID. The theatrical release was small. And then, now it's on Hulu. Well, there are headlines when these things get sold. So Riot at Verizon acquired 5B. Dear Santa landed at IFC Films for release. They also are reviewed by film critics. So 5B has 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's one of 9 films in 2019 that has 100% score. Dear Santa has a 92% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, like, people that make movies, real big movies for a living, they don't have a hit rate like this, right? So I'm excited to take you through our process and kind of give you and the brand storytelling community a peek behind what we think successful.
So a couple of things there that stand out to me, though, is that it'd be hard for initiative to negotiate a deal to sell something to a media company that they're traditionally buying from.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that. Yep. So ergo, Traverse 32.
Right. Yes.
Then and the other part of it is overcoming sort of the budget cycles and financing here in the brand structure.
Yep.
Right. Traverse 32 can shepherd the financing of that.
Right. Absolutely. And I'll get into it, the financing a little bit in one second too, because I think it's a really important piece. But this is what it looks like. 5B was at the Cannes Film Festival, first brand-funded feature film to be at the Cannes Film Festival, alongside Julianne Moore and Priyanka Chopra and Miles Teller. Our film Oso premiered at the San Sebastian Film Festival in Spain. And our film Dear Santa premiered at the Heartland Film Festival and took the Grand Prix for Best Premiere Documentary. It also was an official selection at Doc NYC. The thing that was so cool about Dear Santa is it was a film festival in Indiana that was all drive-in, right? Because it was COVID. So it was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And then reviews. The reviews from Dear Santa, Richard Roper, Chicago Sun-Times, is one of the biggest film critics in the country. And his review is one of the most wonderful films of the year. Hollywood Reporter, an uplifting film about human decency and generosity of spirit. San Francisco Chronicle, it might be the most important movie of 2020. And then you look at reviews for 5B. LA Times, a tough, vital lesson in love, valor, compassion. Variety, grips the heart exactly when you need it to. So these are things that I think are unique to our process and proposition.
It's proof that brands can be producers of entertainment.
Right.
As long as they partner with the right people that know how to tell story, how to produce it, and how to distribute it, brands can be a successful and integral part of this entertainment ecosystem and reap the benefits of doing so.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the big headline is you have to respect the craft of film, and you have to understand that you're making a product, you're making a new product as a company that in market halos and drives to your core product, what you sell to consumers. And what I mean by that is, you have a new customer. So you're making a film and if I'm making a film about this pen, right, or for this pen, I am less focused on the customer that's going to buy the pen, and I'm more focused on my new customer, who is the person that's going to buy my movie, that unlocks the audience that's going to buy my pen. And that audience is probably in a place that I can't buy advertising space anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's on a streaming platform or in a movie theater or some new form.
So some brand storytelling is just aimed at customers and people who are already buying product. I mean, there's a fair amount of content that's just produced that we call brand storytelling, but brand filmmaking is really about appealing to wide audiences that, and not just pulling on, it's not like everybody who's bought our product's going to enjoy this film. We're not going to just show it to our network. We're going to get in theaters and introduce this film to people that may not know our products at all.
Right, right. And the other thing is, films are, they're like alive. Like, it's when you make a film, it's like you have a baby and then you like put it off in the world and watch it grow. And the thing is, though, it lasts for a really long time, right? So like, you may make something that runs in a media buy and you turn the media buy off and it's gone, right? Like, Dear Santa's going to be on Hulu for 15 years, right? Like, 5B sits on Amazon in perpetuity. And by the way, both of those films they work very hard for the brands because they come back every year, right? Yeah. Like, there's going to be Christmas every year, and we can bring Dear Santa back, or we can do a derivative version or an update. Same thing. You've got with 5B, you've got World AIDS Day every year. You also have Nurses Week every year. So these assets work very hard for these brands. But
I can see how Dear Santa could just become a franchise, and that every Christmas there's new stories of aligned with Dear Santa.
Definitely, and that's one of the things that drew us to it. We're so excited about that story. So I am going to just run you through kind of our 10 steps here, if you will. And then I'll take the presentation down so we can talk about them. So we'll go in and talk about each one. But really, like, first we go through a pre-development workshop. Second is the development and the packaging of the film. Third, we look at financing. Fourth is production and post-production. 5 is sale. 6 is film publicity. 7 is film distribution. Then you have entertainment awards, industry awards, and then windowing and the kind of annual activations like I just talked about. And the thing is, each one of these, you need an interesting skill set. Brands are very good at production and post-production, right? They know how to do that. The development piece, they know how to develop advertising. You can shift them a little to get them around to developing long-form film. Where they need the most help is, in the workshop, in figuring out the financing, in figuring out the sales agent who's going to sell the film. The film publicity is very different than the brand PR.
Right.
Right. And then awards around both industry or entertainment. Industry, they likely know, right? So what we've done at Traverse is we've stitched together expertise along these 10 things to make it seamless for clients. So let me
tell us what happens at a workshop.
Yeah, definitely. This is better. I get to see your full screen and we can just have a chat about it. So the pre-development workshop, it's really about understanding, like, what are the tensions in the space that we're talking about, right? Because tension is going to create a good story, right? It's a problem that you need to solve. And we look at story structure. So it's around, okay, whatever has the most tension in it in the workshop, we look at that as the climax of the film, right? And then what you need to do is look at, well, what's an appropriate inciting incident that sets up that climax? And then you ladder in the other stuff. So this is all like basic story structure stuff. Like we think about story as beginning, middle, and end, but it's really about exposition, inciting incident, a series of rising action that get you to climax, and then ultimately there's resolution. So we talk through what those steps could look like in a story around a particular tension.
Can we,
The next thing we do is we have to land on a premise coming out of the workshop. And the premise is the North Star, right? So everything is in service of the premise. And I have an example. I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago, and they said, hey, we want to make a movie about how childcare is the backbone of the middle class, right? Now that sounds like that's an awesome movie. Like I think that there's a lot in there. Like we could definitely go at that. If we dig into a workshop, that idea, right? It could have a premise, opportunity requires support, right? And that's around how people can't get out and do what they need to do and have jobs and things if they're not supported by childcare. It could also have a different premise that's care demands investment. And that's about we need to relook at the system to make sure that there's enough childcare. But like, they're two different movies. And once we have a premise, then we can start to get into development around like what's the form it should take and what is the right team to bring that story to life. And premise is something that is largely unspoken. It's the thing you should feel when you walk out of the theater, or the thing that you should feel at the end of the movie. The premise on 5B was healing demands humanity. It's also the thing that we navigate notes on, right? So if a client says, oh, I don't know if the person should wear a purple shirt, well, is that in service of care demands investment, or it's not important? Right? You know what I mean? Like it focuses the notes. It's either moving towards the premise or away from the premise. So that's really our kind of first step in workshop.
But even backing that up a bit, Brendan, is that when did they arrive on the story? I mean, give us the example with J&J and 5B. Is did they come to you and say,
no,
we want to tell the story of the hero nurses in San Francisco General Hospital?
No, so that is when we get into development. So that's step 2. So after we have the workshop done, and we know what the premise is, then we went out and had a whole bunch of meetings and said, hey, our premise is healing demands humanity. And it's around driving a stronger perception of the role nurses play in healthcare.
So the workshop is about coming up, and excuse me for stepping on you here.
No, it's okay.
Just to be clear, the workshop then is really identifying the premise.
Yes.
That's the goal of the work. Then once you establish that premise, then you go to look for the, how are we going to get that premise across in a compelling story?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, the premise in like headline terms, it takes a brand's marketing brief and turns it into a focused, tight conversation we can have with filmmakers and development partners.
Right.
So we went out and we met with, a series of very top filmmakers. And we wound up having them all, pitch on what their idea would be to develop with us around the film. And this is where you get into packaging. So the package that was developed around the winning idea was with our mutually great friend Rupert McConaughey at Seville, with Paul Haggis and Dan Kraus as 2 of his directors. So we knew that because packaging is important. Remember, we're thinking about how we're delivering for the brand, but also how we're going to sell something. Well, Dan was a festival darling. Paul, multi-Oscar winner.
Right.
and Rupert had just sold a film. So if I'm a brand who's putting my money to place a bet, I'm placing a bet that like these guys their movie's gonna get bought by somebody, right? And that's really what it is. But through that development and packaging, you're making sure that whatever you're about to make, that you think it's going to be sellable. And then you also are really making sure that you're going to solidify a long-term partnership, because these things last a minimum of like 2.5, 3 years once you get through reviews and distribution and entertainment awards and industry awards. You're in business for a long time,
Yeah.
and you look at things like Dear Santa that's going to come back every year. You want to make sure that you have the right people on the project, because you're with them,
Because you're going to be handcuffed to them for a while.
Well, and that's the other thing though, right? Another big difference is everybody's putting their name on it. So the stakes are high.
Right.
Right? Like, it's one thing to make an ad and you hire like the director that just did this, that, and the other. It's another thing to make a film. We're going to make a film, Dear Santa, with Dana and
your
Ackman.
child out in the world. You're going to be parents together.
Right. Well, and so Dana on Dear Santa, I think this was her 11th film that she sold. So, okay, I'm pretty sure she's going to sell this movie, that we're going to get this sold. But 2, I don't want to be the guy that screws this up and makes the first movie Dana can't sell.
Oh.
Right? She just had 2 giant hits with That Kid Begins and Pick of the Litter. So it really is like, it's not a transactional conversation. Like, I'm a brand paying you, director, to do something. Like, you're in it together, and everybody's name's on it, and everybody's name's on the line, and reputation. The third step, which I know is near and dear to your heart, because it's a huge question, is financing.
I got a question first.
Yeah.
On that is the development and packaging step, is that the story finding step? Is that
yes.
the story hunting? Is that you're going out to producers like Rupert and others and directors, and you're coming to them with your premise, and you're asking them to come back to you with the story that fits that premise?
With the seed of a story that we can develop together. Yep. Yeah. So it's more like, what's their take?
Yeah.
So and the takes were very different. I don't know if I've ever shared this with anybody. The second take on what would have been 5B, the second take on Healing Demands Humanity, was a half-hour young adult TV series executive produced by a very famous, female actress. And it was all about young or new nurses entering the workforce. And through the arc, each one of them kind of becomes a hero episode to episode. Mm-hmm. Very different take than where we landed with 5B, but both answer the premise.
Yeah. And
both would have been fantastic ways to bring our project forward in trying to change the perception of nurses.
So the hope is that you get a lot of great seeds presented to you, and you decide which one you're going to plant.
Yes. Yeah. But yes. And I will say, a lot of brands tend to go out and think that people should just give them ideas.
It's the RFP time, right?
In our model, you're basically putting development money in escrow to show that you are really doing it. So the money is there to get you through full development cycle, including writing a first draft of a script, and someone that is pitching on it is going to get the development money. And then that takes you to the place where you have something to green light. So these aren't casual meetings. This is, we think of it, it's like a Hollywood Shark Tank. Like, people are coming in knowing there's money on the table to make something, and they're putting their best foot forward to deliver on the premise and get their project funded.
Right. Well, let's move on because we could do this for hours.
I know.
Let's move on. Like,
Um,
talk to us about the financing aspect of this.
Yeah, so financing is interesting because it can come from a number of places, right? And where I have found success, and I think this is what I think is a superpower, if you will, of sitting at Mediabrands, is generally the largest expense on a marketing budget is the media budget. And the media budgets sit within our media agencies. So if you look at, and I'm rounding up, making up numbers here. These are not our clients' numbers, but for the purpose of this conversation, if a brand has a $30 million annual media budget, we can look to take 10% out of their media budget, $3 million. That's a healthy film budget, very healthy film budget. And it's only 10% of their budget. So like they may be losing, 6 spots a month for the full year. They may be losing like 2 weeks a month for a quarter. And the intention is to sell the film so that they can get the money back to reinvest in their media budget the next year.
Interestingly enough, April 26th is the 20-year anniversary for BMW Films.
Oh, wow.
They created what the first series, I think, was 6 films.
Yep, I think so.
With Hollywood directors and big talent. I mean, Madonna was in one, big actors, big directors. And I talked to a guy, there was a creative director at Fallon at the time. And I said, how did you get BMW to spend all the money to produce those 5 to 10 minute films when this was pre-YouTube? This was, how do you distribute these things even?
Yeah.
And they said, well, it really wasn't expensive because we just got them to shape a little bit of the media budget.
Right.
And then we found a way, if we're going to create great content, people will find a way to find it. That we'll get it in the ecosystem. That's 20 years ago. Yeah,
huge. A giant fan of that work. I mean, I think that work. You used the word earlier about 5B. I think that was seminal work in branded content. And then and while 5B is the first brand-funded feature film at the Cannes Film Festival, BMW Films was the first brand-funded shorts, and it took 18 years to get another piece of content at Cannes Film Festival.
I'll have this conversation with you offline, but I'm trying to get a Zoom together for April 26th to talk about BMW Films and
cool.
Some of but that's a sidetrack. Get us back to the finance.
Yeah, sorry. So I know we're running low. So production and post-production.
This isn't TV.
That's a quick
we
one.
Don't have a hard deadline.
Oh, we don't. Great. So production and post-production. As I said before, that's the stuff that brands are good at. Like they have that stuff figured out. Now they may make it longer or different or union or non-union. I don't mean to minimize it. The reality is it's gotta be great, right? Like it's got to be great because you're not planning to put it in paid media. You're planning to take it to film festivals or take it to buyers off cycle and see who will acquire your film. So that's kind of the headline there, and I think that it goes back to step 2. You've got to put the right team together to create something that's great.
Yeah.
Then the 5th step is around sale, so what's the strategy? Are you going to take it to festival? Are you going to go direct to those buyers? Which rights are you going to retain? And then what non-traditional value can you bring to the deal, right? So, Johnson & Johnson can have a conversation with Verizon as their buyer and say, we have a way to contact all of the nursing communities across the US, and we're going to use it for direct marketing around the film. The Postal Service can go to IFC and say, we're able to put posters in all of our 33,000 post offices around the world, around the US, and we're able to, do this, that, and the other. So you can bring value to the deal. But the first thing is like, what's the strategy? Is there a time that you need this to come out? Do you want to go to festival? And again, it goes back, right? Like we knew Dana on Dear Santa and Dan on 5B were both in the middle of big festival runs. Festivals love them and they love their films, right? So that's all stuff to consider in that part of the equation, but it's tricky and there's no guarantees, right? That's the scariest part. And it's the part where you have the least amount of control. And look, things happen, current events happen, markets change, budgets dry up, buyers run after, like they decide they want something different because you've been making the film for a year and you thought you were right on track. But we've managed to figure it out on our 2 films. I will say there will be a film we'll make that we can't get distributed. It's going to happen.
It's the
The good news is,
nature of the entertainment business, and that's how studios operate. Is that they don't bank on every one of their films being a smash.
right.
They're almost acting as a venture capitalist, that if they get some percentage of films that do well, they're going to be happy.
Right. Now, the good news is if you have a film that has high pedigree, creators on it, and it's great, even if you can't sell it, you can always put it in paid media, right? Like you can always work with your media agency and try and have it placed. You can self-publish it on YouTube and run advertising to point eyeballs to it. There's a number of ways that you can do that. So it's not like you're in the hole, because look, you may not recoup it if you self-publish it, but you can still get it in front of eyeballs.
Yeah.
So that piece, there's really no guarantee there. Then we look at what's the strategy around film publicity, and that's not brand PR. And it's usually filmmaker or subject led, right? Or advocates, so even the nurses of 5B, no one knew them. So we paired, Julianne Moore with Cliff Marson. We paired Halle Berry with Alison Moad for interviews. And, both Julianne and Halle had stories about friends that had died from AIDS. They both had stories of sitting in those hospital rooms with nurses like Cliff and Alison. So you figure out what's the publicity strategy. Then distribution, then it's opening night, if you will, first weekend. You're wanting to understand what the numbers are. You're waiting for the reviews to roll in. And it's exhilarating when it goes your way. It's not always going to go your way, but again, I look at 5B with 100. I look at Dear Santa with a 92. Our process seems to have paid off on these accounts. And it's pretty great when you have someone like Richard Roper saying you made one of the most important films of the year.
Yeah, that there's some equity in that for sure. This is a good time to insert a quick question here from our audience. Zach Kazin from Vox Media asks the question: how are you measuring success to ultimately show that shifting media dollars into a film worked?
Sure. Hey, Zach, I'm a huge fan of Vox. And I sit on their kind of advisory panel, or agency council, I should say. And just a shout out to the community, what they did in acquiring Epic Films is a game changer. Pay attention to Vox.
Yeah.
Zach, it depends on what the KPIs are, right? So, on 5B, they were trying to shift perception of nurses. They had great creative from BBDO. They had healthy media plans. and they couldn't shift the perception. Now, our insight is that negative to neutral perception of nurses was being driven by how they are portrayed in film and TV. So let's fight fire with fire. Let's take some of the media budget and allocate it to make a film about heroic nurses. In the case of Dear Santa, we were looking to make them first choice shipper for holiday. And we used Dear Santa to achieve that goal. So they, first year ever, and consumers that were exposed to Dear Santa marked USPS as first choice shipper for a holiday season. So we're able to get tight KPIs and then build a plan to use this as a way to hit those KPIs. It's not great if you're trying to like sell more pens, this isn't the right tactic for that. But great question.
And important that those KPIs are understood up front, right? And that everything is clearly identified up front of what our intentions are going in.
Right. And the KPIs are linked to premise, right?
Yeah.
You want to change perception of nurses.
Yeah.
Well, we have a premise for a film, and it's going to be scary because we're going to be doing this for a year and a half, and you may want to like change or wiggle, but you can't. Like that's what we decided. And the horse is out of the barn, if you will.
Well, let's cover off now on the awards part of this.
Yeah.
The value of entertainment and industry awards.
Yeah. So the thing that's interesting is like when you are dealing with filmmakers at this level, like they're not going after Cannes Lions and One shows like we are. They want Oscars and Emmys, as do the groups that are acquiring the film, right? Like Riot is looking for those kind of nominations. IFC Films is looking for those kind of nominations and accolades. Our two films, we have landed on short lists. We've landed on ones to watch. Dark Horse could wind up in the noms. We haven't been nominated in those areas, but I will say it's important to put in the steps because you need to wait for those entertainment categories to clear before you pursue industry ads. So like if you win a Clio, or if you win a One Show or a Brand Film Festival award, it's fantastic. But like the Academy is probably going to go like, oh, that's advertising. So in all the distribution deals, there's a period where you can't submit to industry awards until you clear your cycle of entertainment awards. And then you get into the industry awards, 5B really swept. It won the Grand Prix for entertainment at Cannes Lions. It won the Grand Clio for health. Our good friend through brand storytelling and other past experience, Scott Donaton, was the jury president the year that we won the Grand Prix for entertainment. It was great to be able to put work out there that your colleagues recognize as best in class, forward facing, and game changing.
I will add that Sarah Colamarino was nominated and accepted to the Brand Storytelling Honor Roll that year for 5B.
Absolutely.
As well, that was all voted on by a group of peers.
Right. And that's honestly, that's what I love the most about brand storytelling. To show 5B for the first time in a room of colleagues and community members and have it received in that way with a standing ovation. I was pacing. I was so nervous. I was pacing around. I got there an hour early and probably changed my shirt twice because I sweat through it. And I had cards I didn't use. But it's a safe place because we all cheer each other on. And I want to say, What I'm talking about today is how we do it. There's a number of ways that people do it. And like, we're champions of all the brand storytellers and all the different ways that people are bringing great work to the market. This is just kind of the little lane that we've carved out. So by no means am I saying like, this is how you have to do it. But I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to give like this community a peek under the hood in a way that we haven't with anybody else.
No, it's really terrific, and we appreciate the transparency and all of this, because it's going to help everybody. I don't think that it will be long before we're back talking about a film of yours that was nominated for an Oscar, that was on the short list. And speaking of which, a shout out to our friend Ben Proudfoot at Breakwater Studios,
So
who's
good.
nominated for his short film, A Concerto is a Conversation. So tune into the Oscars on April 25th, coming right up, and root for Ben to be a brand storyteller with an Oscar.
I mean, and he's just one of the best. We're searching for a project to do together.
There must be one.
He might be too busy now, though. He's pretty fancy.
Yeah. He'll still do work for you, I'm sure. Hey, Brendan, I think we're pushing right up against our time here. Actually, we're past it.
Okay.
This has been anything you'd like to wrap with here before we move on? I know we've got questions in the chat here. I don't know that we're going to be able to get to them, but anything we haven't covered?
Sorry?
Anything that we haven't mentioned that you'd like to close with right now?
I think like if you want to make a brand film, be really clear about what you want people to feel when they leave the room. That's what we call premise. Find the right partners, and also have fun. Like, it's going to be scary and it's going to be hard, and just don't take it too seriously and have fun. We're here to help. So info@Traverse32. Happy to answer any questions. Again, thank you so much, Rick, for giving us the opportunity, and always being such a champion and advocate of the craft.
I appreciate the time, Brendan, and we'll see you here again soon. And for all of you that tuned in, thanks for being here. This will be up on our YouTube channel here in the next day or so. Share it widely with your friends. I think we've all learned a lot here today. Brendan, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Look forward to seeing you again soon, my friend.
Keep telling great stories, guys. Thank you.
Signing off.